Hello dear friends. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite network is part of the Emergency Broadcast System EBS. So, this accident could be detrimental to the disclosure we expect. Opinion piece. Solar storm knocks out 40 Starlink satellites. They will crash to Earth in the next few days. Shockwave hits Earth's magnetic field. Mock collapse of the system by the Fed. 87 countries study adopting their central bank digital currency. Truckers blockade in Canada shuts down auto plants. Ontario declares state of emergency over truckers' protest. Canadian judge orders end to Ambassador Bridge blockade. US asks Canada to use federal powers to remove the blockade. Thousands of citizens travel from different parts of France to Paris. Deforestation in the Amazon rainforest reaches a new record in January. Shortage of flowers threatens bee survival in Chile. Moscow called statements on an early attack on Ukraine hysteria. Mayan communities legal battle in Guatemala over ancestral lands. Intel launches a special blockchain chip to capitalize on cryptocurrency boom. Let's start. A geomagnetic storm caused by a large burst of radiation from the sun has disabled at least 40 to 49 satellites recently launched by SpaceX as part of its Starlink Internet Communications Network. Due to a powerful solar flare, 40 of the 49 satellites are expected to crash to Earth in the next few days, according to Space.com. Friday's geomagnetic storm came on the heels of a January 30th solar flare that sent a wave of charged particles toward Earth that was expected to arrive February 2nd. The speed and severity of the solar storm dramatically increased the atmospheric density, creating intense friction or drag. Most satellites were forced to lower levels of the atmosphere where they bent up. SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launched 49 Starlink satellites on Thursday, February 3rd from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. A day later, a geomagnetic storm over Earth slightly increased the density of the atmosphere, increasing the drag on the satellites and dooming most of them. The geomagnetic storm that occurred earlier this month was triggered by a powerful M-class solar flare on January 30th, which lasted more than 4 hours and was followed by a coronal mass ejection. Since 2018, SpaceX has launched more than 2,000 of these satellites in an effort to bring its highest-speed internet to all corners of the world, especially those where regular internet access is not possible or is very limited. In 2021, SpaceX set a new company record for the most rocket launches in 1 year with 31 missions. According to SpaceX, the speed and severity of the solar storm dramatically increased the atmospheric density at the satellite's low orbit altitude, creating intense drag that took out at least 40 of them. Starlink operators attempted to arrange the satellites in plural in a safe mode orbital configuration, which allowed them to fly edge-on to minimize drag. Geomagnetic storms. Geomagnetic storms occur when intense solar wind near Earth generates shifting currents and plasma in Earth's magnetosphere according to the Space Weather Prediction Center, operated by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This interaction can be hit Earth's upper atmosphere and increase atmospheric density high enough over the planet to affect low-orbiting satellites like SpaceX's new Starlink spacecraft. SpaceX has been launching fleets of Starlink satellites, sometimes as many as 60 at a time, since 2019, to build an orbiting mega constellation that could have as many as 42,000 satellites someday. The project aims to provide high-speed internet access to customers anywhere on Earth, especially in remote or underserved areas, SpaceX said. The Starlink project has been criticized by astronomers because of the mega constellation's impact on astronomical observations, as the sheer number of satellites crisscrossing the night sky can leave streaks in telescope views. SpaceX has since worked to limit the visibility of its Starlink satellites to reduce their impact on the astronomical community. Shockwave. An unexpected interplanetary shockwave hit Earth's magnetic field on February 11th at 18 or 6 p.m. The impact UTC. The impact triggered a G1 class geomagnetic storm and some very colorful auroras inside the Arctic Circle. 24 hours earlier, a coronal mass ejection hit Earth's magnetic field on February 9th. The G1 category geomagnetic storm erupted 24 hours later. Auroras appeared over the coast of Scotland. The storm took a full day as the Earth moved deeper into the wake of the coronal mass. With more than 3 million kilometers behind the shock front, the Earth encountered a type of intense magnetic fields that triggered geomagnetic storms. This type of delay is not uncommon. Minor ejections, such as the one that hit on February 9th, often do not produce a storm on first contact. The initial shock is not enough. The wake may be more effective, causing storms a day or two later. Trackers. First, trackers lockout in Canada shuts down auto plants. Second, Canadian trackers continue to control the borders, while other tracker convoys organized in the US, Europe, Finland, and Australia. Third, thousands of trackers across Canada protesting Justin Trudeau's mandates won a victory when Ontario Premier Doug Ford was forced to do an about-face when he announced the elimination of the health pass in his province. Fourth, Charlie Ward says the tracker convoy was started by black hats, but an attempt to control them failed. They tried to show cause for other purposes. Fifth, Ontario declares state of emergency over truckers' protest. Ontario Premier Doug Ford declared a state of emergency for the Canadian province on Friday, giving police the power to fine or jail demonstrators protesting in the city of Ottawa and elsewhere in the region. 6. Canadian judge orders end to Ambassador Bridge blockade. Ontario Superior Court Chief Justice Geoffrey Morawetz ordered protesters on the Ambassador Bridge to end their 5-day blockade as of 7 p.m. Friday. 7th, protesters defy injunction. Protesters opposing restrictions were still occupying a vital Canada-US trade corridor Friday, hours after a court order went into effect to end a blockade that has hurt North America's auto industry. 8. Truckers on Ambassador Bridge big perfect spot. Canada's trucker protesters couldn't have picked a better place to threaten export-driven US-Canada trade or North America's auto industry than the 4-lane Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, experts say. 9. US asks Canada to use federal powers to ease blockade. The White House believes Canada should use federal powers to ease the growing economic disruption caused by the blockade of a vital US-Canada trade route by anti-mandate protesters. Europe. Paris armors up for convoy. French authorities deployed armored vehicles and prepared barriers for the protest. Paris police prepare Friday for the arrival of the so-called Freedom Convoy, due to arrive in the French capital later in the day. Authorities said special machines would be used to prevent them from blocking Paris for the protesters, who were already banned from entering the city. Thousands of citizens are traveling to the capital from different parts of France, imitating the Freedom Convoy, in which hundreds of truckers paralyzed Ottawa, Canada. The city authorities have made it clear that they do not intend to allow the protests, which also demand lower fuel prices. A New French Revolution and a Sixth Republic by David Lefschultz. By locating all the initial meeting points on the periphery of France, the authorities find it impossible to stop all the convoys. Once they start rolling, they make their way onto the highways where they certainly can and will be stopped. But having many meeting places throughout France, they can regroup at these locations if necessary, as 2 days are planned for the convoys to arrive in Paris on Saturday. The Interior Minister has promised an extreme government response if they arrive in the capital to occupy it. However, that is not the goal. It is only the goal to stay in Paris for 2 days, when the convoys start heading to Brussels to arrive there on Valentine's Day. 4th, Mario Draghi is no longer the Superman of Davos. In Italy, Prime Minister Mario Draghi has gone into hiding, imitating Trudeau after being repudiated by Parliament. Rumors of war. First, Biden will call the leaders of Britain, Germany, France, Italy, Poland, Canada, the European Union, and NATO regarding the crisis in Ukraine. Second, Biden confuses Afghanistan and Ukraine. Joe Biden confused the countries of Afghanistan and Ukraine despite the fact that they are separated by more than 3,000 kilometers. Third, date of Russian invasion announced by Bloomberg. Bloomberg reported Friday that the Russian invasion of Ukraine could occur as soon as Tuesday, citing unnamed sources. The media outlet had accidentally released news of an invasion earlier and was forced to apologize for error. Fourth, Moscow calls claims of an early attack on Ukraine hysteria. Russia dismissed as hysteria reports of an early attack on Ukraine, which the White House said could come as early as next week. The White House hysteria is more revealing than ever. The Anglo-Saxons want war at any cost, close quotes, said Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova. 5. NATO urges Western citizens to leave Ukraine as Russia could invade at any time. The US and its allies urged their citizens to leave Ukraine immediately to avoid the Russian invasion, including a possible airstrike, which Washington said Friday could happen at any time. 6. Russia frustrated after 9 hours of failed negotiations. A senior Russian official has publicly expressed annoyance after the second round of negotiations between the political advisors of the 4 Normandy nations, Russia, Ukraine, France and Germany, concluded without significant progress Thursday night. 7th. Putin says there would be no winners if war broke out. Everyone is being sacrificed to the god of war. This would be a pawn sacrifice, and we are the pawns in a chess game. 8. NATO assesses deploying new battle groups to Black Sea nations. The recent deployment of additional troops to Romania sends a strong message about Washington's commitment to European security, and the NATO may form additional battle groups in other nations adjacent to the Black Sea, Alliance Chief Jens Stoltenberg said. 9. Spanish Eurofighters will conduct NATO surveillance operation in Bulgaria and Lithuania. 4 Spanish Air Force Eurofighters arrived Friday in Bulgaria to patrol the country's airspace. Another 6 will do so in Lithuania. All of them are part of a NATO mission. The 4 Eurofighters will perform the air police duties that Spain has been carrying out since 2015. 10. The Pentagon identifies the culprits of the disastrous Afghan withdrawal. The US military points the finger at President Biden and other high-ranking officials for interfering in the evacuation. According to the 2,000-page report obtained by the Washington Post through a Freedom of Information Act request earlier this week, senior officials in charge of the evacuation were forced to change plans because of the relentless interference from Washington. 11. American decline. The current crisis of Ukraine would be one more chapter in the process of loss of protagonism and decline of the US in its role as a world power, according to Paulo Sergio Robel, professor of international relationships at the Pontifical University of Rio de Janeiro. Economy. Stocks fall again. While stocks fell Friday on growing concerns about escalating tensions between Ukraine and Russia and the prospect of a tighter Fed interest rate hike timetable. Second, investors expect more volatility. Geopolitical concerns added another layer of volatility to an already choppy market as investors discounted the possibility of an escalation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, although some doubted the issue would weigh on asset prices in the longer term. Third, the global financial system was idle for 72 hours when the new gold and asset-backed dollar was believed to be integrated into the system. Fourth, Brent crude oil price rises above $95 per barrel. The price of Brent crude oil reached $95.16 per barrel, surpassing $95 for the first time since October 1st, 2014, according to stock market data. 5. Poland takes Gazprom to court again over gas prices. Poland's state-owned PGNiG announced that it filed a counterclaim after Russian gas supply Gazprom went to court to revise upward the gas prices set in contracts. 6. Iraq is open for international business as reported by the IMF. The problem is the fact that they do not yet have a fully established government. Someone complained about the election of Sadr, and that has everything at a standstill, waiting for the Supreme Court to make a ruling accepting or rejecting this president. 7th, 87 countries, represented over 90% of the world's GDP, are considering adopting a central bank digital currency. This is a massive leap, as only 35 countries were exploring this option in May 2020. 8. Fed conducts economic recession drill, tests ability to manage system collapse. The Federal Reserve is about to conduct its annual stress test on the largest banks by measuring their ability to handle events such as a drop in real estate and other asset prices, along with a rise in unemployment, while continuing to pay dividends to shareholders for 4 consecutive years. The 34 banks being tested must withstand a hypothetical recession that concentrates stress in the commercial real estate and corporate debt markets. 9. Big banks to drop office mask mandate. The New York Stock Exchange will drop its face mask mandate effective immediately, a source said Friday, after several large banks also dropped their office face mask requirements. 10. Court proceedings begin. Dr. Rainer Feulmich releases the statements and summary testimony of witnesses that we can anticipate in an American model grand jury presentation. 10 statements have been released in one video and in 10 segments. 11. Tesla recalls more than 600,000 vehicles for 2 new system problems. Electric automaker Tesla once again required its users to run a software update on their vehicles. This time, the pedestrian warning system and the heat pump are the ones involved. This is the company's 10th recall since November 2020. Cryptocurrencies. Intel launches a special blockchain chip to capitalize on cryptocurrency boom. Intel Corp on Friday launched the new chip for blockchain applications such as Bitcoin mining to capitalize on the growing use of the cryptocurrencies. Second, Russia could hit chip industry. The White House is warning the chip industry to diversify its supply chain in case Russia retaliates against threats of U.S. export restrictions by blocking access to key materials. Third, cryptocurrencies, an obscure object of desire. Cryptocurrencies have attracted so much attention from financial institutions and regulators that by now one thing is clear. They are here to stay, but it is hard to trust them. The price of Bitcoin, for example, has suffered ups and downs, worthy of a soap opera, not to mention the fact that many believe there is no one who understands the mechanism behind it. Fourth, Binance investment in Forbes put its virtual riches into real-world stuff. The world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, will make a $200 million strategic investment in the 104-year-old Forbes trade media brand, CNBC reported. China. First, China wants to be the world's most influential power, says US. On February 11th, the White House released its long-awaited strategy for the Indo-Pacific region, outlining how it plans to address the CCP's growing political recklessness and secure and enhance the region for the international community. Second, the CCP is terminally ill. A group of Chinese officials could stage an internal coup against China leader Xi Jinping and transition China to a democratic political system, according to Roger Garside, author of China Group. Third, China is moving big time, with its real estate-based economy having hit a dead end in bankrupt. The Chinese Communist Party is planning big changes. The CCP already has a B plan in place. They are preparing to nationalize everything in China. They will take over all businesses, banks, and real estate. This will destroy all foreign investments. The CCP is also seriously considering revaluing the price of gold at least twice to save the yuan from total collapse. Fourth, Afghan refugees in United Arab Emirates protest for third day, call for resettlement in US. Afghan refugees detained in the United Arab Emirates for months since fleeing Afghanistan last year protested for a third day Friday, calling for resettlement in the US. Americas. Mexico analyzes millionaire sanction against Iberdrola. Mexico's Energy Regulatory Commission initiated a sanctioning process against Iberdrola, a multinational company that it accuses of selling electricity in an irregular manner. Second, deforestation in the Amazon rainforest reaches a record in January. Brazil recorded the highest deforestation in the Amazon rainforest during the month of January, according to government data on Friday, as the destruction continues to worsen despite recent government promises to control it. Third, flour shortage threatens bee survival in Chile. The main reason is the severe drought of the country has been suffering from the past 13 years. This has forced beekeepers to feed the bees with sugar water to keep them alive, which is insufficient. Fourth, legal battle of a Mayan community in Guatemala for their ancestral lands. In Guatemala, an indigenous Mayan Quechua community is fighting for what is theirs. Representatives of the community of Agua Caliente, one of the 16 Maya Quechua communities in the municipality of El Estor, asked the Inter-American Court of Human Rights to guarantee the collective ownership of their ancestral lands and to be able to decide on them. The lawsuit also points out the establishment of a nickel mining project in their territory owned by a subsidiary of the Swiss group Solway Investment and carried out without adequate consultation with the community. 5. Russia pledges increased military and economic cooperation with countries such as Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela. 6. Argentina enters China's Silk Road. Monroe Doctrine collapses. Argentina also joined China's Belt and Road Infrastructure Initiative. Argentina is also becoming a new Russian front, with Argentine President Alberto Fernández in Russia saying, in quotes, "I am constantly working to free Argentina from dependence of the IMF, and the US cooperation with Russia is vital for us." This includes further integration between the Eurasian Economic Union and the Common Market of the South, Mercosur. 7. Similar moves are underway in the Middle East. Xi Jinping met with the Egyptian President Abdel el-Sisi and said that the comprehensive strategic partnership between Egypt and China is a model of solidarity between China and Arab countries. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.